here and say that you should move the table. Here and say that you should move the table.
Saturday afternoon from the shores of the North Sea. We are here in Zandvoort to resume competitive action after the summer break. It's round 15 of this longest season. all the seasons have descended on this circuit, and crucially for this qualifying session, the wind has picked up again today.
It is a bit of tailwind into turn one. It'll be quite difficult to slow the cars down. The drivers have got very limited experience. Second shortest lap on the calendar after Monaco. So the corners come at you thick and fast, as does the finish line. And I think when we will have all, well, probably 19 of them out, although they were feverishly working away on Logan Sargent's Williams, that'd be some kind of miracle if they got that out on the track in time to do a qualifying run, because I'm sure half that car went in the skip, let alone got recovered after his crash in turn 3 in a wet free practice 3 this morning. But yeah, I think the conditions are challenging. The track is green. Any rubber that has been put down has been washed away, and so it'll be quite an adventure for them.
8 pole positions so far this season for this man, Max Verstappen, who has won the last 3 years here from pole position. But Red Bull go into this qualifying session knowing that pole is not necessarily theirs until he produces a championship lap, because they haven't necessarily got the quickest car this afternoon.
No, we do know that Mercedes look good if they can switch the tyres on. McLaren, there's no doubt about it. Once again, their updates look as if they were ready to go and they knew exactly what they were going to get, and they're not disappointed. So, but I think Verstappen's right in there still. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him on pole. But you're right, he's going to have to work at it. But that was a really unfortunate accident there for Williams and Logan Sargent. Kept his foot in on the grass there, steered into the slide, which gave him like an anti-lock across the racetrack, and then hit a curved piece of barrier where there's a service road. So he wasn't able to slide down the barrier, and just everything was wrong about that. And then to add insult to injury, it caught fire. But they, as I said, they look like they're working hard to try to get him out again.
They are going to do their very best. The chassis did need changing, but I'll be absolutely amazed if he gets onto the track and will pop down to Williams and applaud the entire crew, because now they've worked miracles to get that car back on the track. As and when it does appear, and looking at it, I think they might be quietly confident, because it's not feverish activity that's going on there, which either means they've given up, which I don't think they have, or they're pretty confident they can get him out in the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, it didn't, as you're right, as you said, it didn't look feverish, and the floor's got to go on. That's a massive piece of real estate to be fixed underneath.
So, as I mentioned, Martin, none of the last 6 races have been won from pole position. But this is a track where pole is pretty crucial. You can overtake, but it's difficult. It just makes it a little bit more competitive this afternoon, with a number of cars going into this session, all with the opportunity to get their car right out there.
Well, McLaren think they can catch Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship, and they still think Lando Norris has got a chance to win the Drivers' Championship. So, you know, every session from here on in till the final checker flag in Abu Dhabi will be critical.
So, stay with us then for the roller coaster ride that is the second part of this season. And all roller coasters start off with a nice, gentle exit from the station and towards the first climb. And we're at that stage at the moment. Nice and gentle, nothing happening whatsoever, even though we've got the green light at the end of the pit lane. Oh, we have got a car on track. Nico Hulkenberg, who has had problems with his braking in the wet conditions, going into the barriers and going straight on at turn 11 in the practice session this morning, which the team say isn't necessarily a technical issue, and they haven't found anything that desperately needs fixing. If you want to ride on board with Nico Hulkenberg, you can. We've got all 20 on boards and the team radios for you. What you need is your Sky Sports app and your Sky Sports ID to log in with. And if you are watching on Sky Q, Sky Glass or Sky Stream, or now, you can use the interactive button on your remote control. Take your pick and choose your driver. And I dare say this could be one of those sessions where the track evolves lap after lap after lap, Martin, and leaving it until the very last minute might be your best bet for the best success.
Yeah, you can be confident in that prediction, because they will start laying some Pirelli rubber down. It does say here that the chances of rain are 40%, which means a 60% chance it won't rain, of course, but they want to get out there, get a time on the ball, but the track will come to them, and the corners come at them thick and fast around here. I said in the pre-show today It's a very old school track, and in many ways these cars are too big and too fast for this layout. But I think that somewhat adds to the challenge, actually, in terms of and the car smoking. I think it's where it's just hitting the ground. It is where the remember they go out of the pits into parc fermé conditions for qualifying. So that is their race setup, and that car certainly looked very low, didn't it, with its new plank underneath and skid blocks.
Which you obviously don't want to wear down too much because it is monitored by the FIA. One of the reasons that George Russell came a cropper with his weight at the end of the Belgian Grand Prix was the plank had worn down, the tyres had worn down because he was on a one-stopper, and he said he was a bit lighter himself as well, found himself 1.5 kilos underweight and was disqualified and lost that race victory. First man since Michael Schumacher 30 years ago to be disqualified from a race win after he crossed the checkered flag. Nico Hülkenberg's lap is a 1:13.0 as he crosses the line. Last year in Q1, 1:20.9. Alex Albon with the fastest time, but very different conditions because it was raining at that stage. Joe Guanyu 7/10 behind Hülkenberg as he crosses the line, and we're on board with Carlos Sainz, who lost most of the second practice session with a gearbox issue and then didn't get much running today in the wet conditions. So this is going to be a bit of a novelty here, and the first lap that Carlos Sainz has done this weekend here on the soft compound tyres. So take it away, Martin.
Down into Tarzan, the first corner. It was always great, quite banked, a little bit scary on the way in because you're carrying so much speed. And immediately turn 2 comes up on you, and that's the lead in to the banked corner. You do not apex on the inside, you apex on the outside of the corner. You touch the white line there, over the blind crest, and this is a very sweeping section that will be absolutely flat out when everything is going well. Into turn 7, 140 miles an hour minimum, and just keep pouring the throttle on. Turn 8 nips a little bit through the exit, and we're now starting heading home already. Last year's pole position a 1:10.5, and you'd expect the cars to be quicker this year if the track is good enough in terms of the development that they've done. And use as much track as you can because you minimize the angle of the corner. You might travel a couple of meters further, but it does enable you to carry more speed. It's quite a tricky little section there. Again, the front end of the car there looked a little bit reluctant, and tip it in then to the penultimate corner, then floor it through the banking. They can even open the DRS rear wing through there. They've got so much surplus grip and hang on for the finish line, which is a reasonable distance down this pit straight. And Sainz then only, where did he end up? On that one, just, yeah.
A long distance down from Lance Stroll with the fastest time so far, but I'll caveat that with that was his first run on soft tyres during the course of this weekend, because he didn't put a soft tyre run in during the first practice session either. His teammate Charles Leclerc crosses the line, slightly more competitive, but Ferrari still off the pace when compared to Alex Albon and Lance Stroll. Here comes Oscar Piastri, searching still for his first pole in Formula 1, even though he's got a Grand Prix win, and he puts 3/10 between himself and the Aston Martin.
Yeah, the windy conditions and the green track, we're missing a second at the moment on this racetrack at least. So the cars will be sliding around a bit. The drivers will be complaining a bit. It's not doing what they expected, but it's almost like starting a Grand Prix weekend, isn't it, getting out there today? This is the gimbal camera on the top of Lando Norris. It's an interesting picture, but I have to tell you, it is not at all what it looks or feels like driving a Formula 1 car.
But I do like it. I've seen opinions split on social media on this one, but I do think, and it smooths out and takes a lot of the bumps out of the ride. I do think it's absolutely fabulous to watch, and you get a very different perspective. Through the first sector, 24.4 for Lando Norris. Wasn't the fastest first sector that we had so far. Gets past his teammate Oscar Piastri, who moves out of the way and continues on his way as Lewis Hamilton sets the fastest time with a 1:11.3.
Front axle, the tyres are not warm enough. He had to wait so long for the front to just pick up grip and get him into the corner earlier on in the lap. So there's a lot of time in Lando Norris's pocket if he can improve the front end grip on this car. Look how tight it looks in that penultimate corner. And then boom, off you go. Total trust and belief in the integrity of your suspension and your aerodynamics. as he then goes second. They're all down in the 1:11.3s. Hamilton, Norris, Piastri a little bit behind.
Yeah, left his best sector until last, Lando Norris as well. 0.02 of a second off Lewis Hamilton's time. Where did he leave a little bit of time on the track? Probably there.
So he understeered wide, and then, as so often happens, understeer leads into oversteer. You get on the throttle to try to correct it, and the next thing is the back end of the car sliding instead. So it can put some front wing into that. It can change his differential settings. Maybe his line, maybe he's carrying a bit too much speed. The track will come to him as well, but the front axle on the McLaren not working on that lap.
So everybody out now on the track, or has been out on the track, bar Logan Sargent, because Max Verstappen has just left the garage for his outlap. And there's Alex Albon, his former teammate, who's currently fifth fastest with a pretty competitive time of a 1:11.8. Big upgrades on the Williams this weekend to try and give them more pace, and they kind of need it at the moment. Down in 9th in the Constructors' Championship, 7 points off Alpine, with only 4 points so far this season. 2 9th-place finishes for Alex Albon, and he looked a little bit twitchy and nervous there, or certainly the car did, as he got his foot down coming out of turn 1. Round Hugenholtz he goes. That's the banked turn at turn 3. Continues on his way, and this is the proper roller coaster bit. It's just relentless. 0.2 off the pace through the first sector.
Now that is what it feels like to drive a Formula One car. That is absolutely how it feels, because you've got a little camera alongside his eye line, and luckily your brain dials out quite a lot of that movement. Otherwise you'd struggle to see where you're going, but there's an awful lot of furniture in the way, isn't there, with the halo in the middle and the arches over the front wheels. But the drivers, somehow, you very rarely look out the front of a car, actually. You're tending to look out sort of across the top of each wheel is mostly where you're looking. And there again, he opens the rear wing in the final turn. You could almost see a little step of oversteer from the back of the car as he did dump some rear downforce and therefore rear drag.
5th fastest for Alex Albon. That might have been and was another new set of tyres that he put on. Max Verstappen to 10th off through the first 2 sectors. Through the chicane, he spun here yesterday in the wet conditions. No such problems today on his first run. Now, towards the banking we go, then final corner. It's so steep on this banking, it's hard to actually stand on there without losing your balance at times, but at full speed it's not a problem for these drivers. And Verstappen crosses the line 18,000ths of a second away from Lewis Hamilton, but down in 3rd place. This is going to be tight today. Less than 2/10 separating the top 4 currently, as we go to Sky Race Control and Bernie Collins. Hi,
yes,
Ben.
hello Crofty. So one thing to point out, we've already seen cars trying to do a second lap on the same set of soft tyres, and that isn't working. Even though the track is improving rapidly, the degradation in soft is such that you can't get a second lap out of a single set. So many are boxing at this stage, going for that second fresh set. Now, going into this qualifying, because of what happened in P3, we don't actually know for most of the field how many sets of soft they have, but I'm sure we're going to find out.
We certainly are. The likes of Piastri and Stroll, I think, and Fernando Alonso tried a second run on a set of soft compound tyres, and it didn't work out for them. Carlos Sainz was one of the early drivers to go for a lap, Martin. His first lap wasn't particularly competitive. As he reaches the line halfway down the main straight, we'll see how good this lap is. And once again, not particularly competitive.
No, too many adventures. The back end of the car stepping out, he clumped the curb hard, and it was a scruffy lap.
And that was another new set of tyres, as well as Pierre Gasly, who was the fastest driver in the wet in FP3, goes 5th fastest. Joe Guan Yu crosses the line down in the bottom 5. Yuki Tsunoda just outside of it, and Esteban Ocon goes 12th fastest. And race control have noted an incident, Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez, for a potential impeding. That's not been passed to the stewards as yet, as Russell goes into the top 10, but only just. We'll let you know if it does. Not a hard track to impede someone on.
No, we didn't see it, so we can't really comment on it at this time, but that's worrying lap for Russell. That's 6/10 off the pace. And it's that sort of gap that will give you a lot of headaches today.
You mentioned it a couple of times, Martin. You know, you can get a gust of wind in your favour or not in your favour at any stage on these laps. I wonder if this is the impeding here. We're on board with Sergio Perez. Hamilton turns in, And did that compromise Sergio Perez?
What the f is this idiot doing?
I think he feels he did.
This idiot, seven-time world champion, some people say, but he was desperately trying to get out of the way.
Yeah, that's well out of his way. Yeah, no sweat.
He was sort of parked on the outside of the corner. I mean, he was going to have to stop, wasn't he? So all the right intentions were there. But Sergio obviously got into the corner, felt like he was about to be impeded, and it kind of was a self-fulfilling thing then.
Sergio Perez, despite getting the vote of confidence, as it were, from Red Bull over the summer break, is a man under pressure when it comes to qualifying. 4 of the last 7 races, he's gone out in Q1. Now, his current best time of a 1:11.9 is about 4/10 faster than Daniel Ricciardo, who's in 16th.
No grip, sliding all over the place.
You said George Russell's time would be a bit concerning, and I think he feels that something needs to be changed on that car, if they can, to give him a little bit more of a chance.
It's really hard now, though. You know, another set of tyres might be better, might be different. They can't really lower the tyre pressures too much because there are limits they have to stick to. 24 psi front, cold before they go on the car. They're not cold because they're coming out of the blankets at 70 degrees. But, you know, some front wing angle, change the electronics, but there's nothing. They can't change the vertical stiffness of the suspension. They can't change the geometry. They can't change the rear wing level now. So you're kind of painted in the corner a little bit if you're fundamentally out of sorts.
Bernie Collins is watching tyres. George Russell's second run, Bernie, new or used?
Yes, it was a used set, so he did a first run on new, then he ran that set again for the used. He's complaining still in the garage about it, but that used tyre on the second lap just isn't up to it. And these top teams that have been used to sailing through qualifying on a single set, it's just not going to be possible, I think, with the track improvement today.
And that's the thing. The track will continue to improve as more and more rubber is laid down and the sand is blown away. So they're going to have to sacrifice more sets of tyres as Stroll goes 4th fastest.
Yeah, he was quick out of the box as well, wasn't he? So what happens on a day on a track like this where the cars are moving around a lot, it's windy, brand new set of tyres, of course, there then for Fernando Alonso, is you bring your focus back in the cockpit. You have to drive the corner. You have to drive the exit of the corner. You don't just get the nose in, hit the throttle and think about what's coming up down the road a bit. You can tell the drivers are having to drive every metre of the racetrack because the cars are lively, it's slippery, it's windy, and they don't know too much about these particular cars on this racetrack.
Logan Sargent still in the garage, hasn't set a time yet. 3.5 minutes just under to go. It's getting a bit touch and go to see if he's going to come out or not. Joe Guan Yu, Valtteri Bottas, the 2 Saubers, Tsunoda and Ricciardo, the 2 RBs, they're the 5 in the knockout zone. And if you're in that bottom 5, when all the laps are finished, then you're out of qualifying. Oh, there's a queue in the pit lane as they try and sort out the gaps before all the cars leave the pit lane. I was going to say, Carlos Sainz at the moment right on the fringes of that bottom 5. He's coming out on the track already. 1/10 of a second difference between himself and Ricciardo. If that projected knockout time is a 1:11.9, Sainz needs to improve by about 3/10 of a second here. He's the big shot potentially in this qualifying session.
The saving grace of a short lap is a short out lap as well, but there are drivers who are stuck in the pit lane there whose out lap, the way they like to prepare their tyres particularly, will be compromised.
So here goes Max Verstappen for another lap here, which is interesting that they've sent Max out on 1:11.3 with his best time so far. He should be comfortably through, but Red Bull feel that he might just need to dial himself in a little bit more and get another lap in.
He's about to come across a pair of Aston Martins. One of them he's cleared already. Is that great turn 3 over the blind crest. And sweeping through, they carry such speed through there, up close against the barriers, and already to the super fast one at the far end of the circuit, and everybody staying out of his way as he threads that Red Bull beautifully through the series of turns. But again, front end of the car, it's not quite there, is it?
Yeah, used tyres for Max Verstappen, so they've sent him out for I think it's a sighter lap. You're not going to improve your time, Max, but dial yourself in a bit.
Yeah, he's really having to wrestle it from time to time. Look at that, he had to correct the slide, and he's abandoned that lap. It's sliding around so much.
So who is improving out there? First sectors, Bottas and Joe, Alonso, Hulkenberg, Piastri, Norris, all putting in their personal best for the first sector.
Unbelievable sliding.
Yeah, George Russell was sliding on his second lap on a set of tyres as well. Verstappen's got the same. Joe Guanyu crosses the line down in 19th. Bottas gets himself out of that bottom 5 at the expense of Carlos Sainz, who's now in the relegation zone and needing to improve, and has done in the first sector. Magnussen goes 6th fastest. Ace the final sector, shows you the track improvement that's out there. Got the best one of the lot so far. Here's Carlos Sainz. Through the first sector we go, and in a couple of the mini sectors, it looks better for him. But we'll get the split time round about now. And he's fractionally inside the time he needs, Martin, to clear that bottom 5. But he's not really flying out there, is he?
No, not enough, but in terms of threatening the front runners at this time, but this should be a better lap. It should surely give Sainz a chance of living for Q2 and sorting a few things out.
Always finished at the top 5 here at Zandvoort. Needs to get out of the bottom 5 here in qualifying. Talking of that top 5, Alex Albon has gone 4th fastest with another decent lap from him. Checker flag is flying. These are the laps that are going to need to count right now. And Sainz round that banking as Alonso now goes 4th fastest. Has he done enough to clear that bottom 5? It goes fastest overall, and what a final sector that was from Carlos Sainz. Third time of asking, Sainz puts himself right at the sharp end of this qualifying. George Russell, middle sector. Sergio Perez, first sector, fastest of all. Charles Leclerc wants to put a bit of daylight between himself and the top 5. How about that? Goes 2nd fastest. This track is really ramping up now as George Russell next across the line. He goes quickest by about 0.3 of a second. Sergio Perez is down in the bottom 5 at the moment, but is improving, and improving enough so that he won't join Bottas, Joe and Sargent and Ocon in making his way towards the media pen at the end of this session. He goes quickest overall with his final lap.
But they've had to burn an extra set of the precious soft compound tyres to do that, and it just confirms again the track is improving literally minute by minute.
So, Perez, Russell, Sainz, Leclerc and Hamilton at the top 5. Hamilton is out on the track now, came out on another set of used soft tyres. Daniel Ricciardo is going to make his way out of qualifying as well. He has, I think, taken the checkered... No, he got to the line just before the checkered flag to complete his final flying lap, but is not going to be troubling anyone in Q2, and he has been out-qualified again by his teammate Yuki Tsunoda for the 10th time this season. Esteban Ocon, who previously here in Zandvoort has finished on the 2nd row after the qualifying session, is out, 17th fastest. Bottas and Joe, the two Saubers, the only team not to score a point this season, also out, and Logan Sargent didn't get himself on the track after that crash in FP3. But it's Sergio Perez who left it till late to produce the fastest time from George Russell.
Here in media channel. I hear him say that he's going to need to change it.
Welcome back to Zandvoort. Esteban Ocon out and not happy. And he's not the only driver who isn't happy with what went on in that first session. But with Sergio Perez, it's less about the car and more about someone else's car. He was on a flying lap, Lewis Hamilton was on an out lap, and that impeding incident has been reported to the stewards, who will investigate after the session. Let's head to the sky pad. Anthony Davidson.
Yeah, thanks, Crofty. So, yeah, we just heard that message. I couldn't see what was being shown there on the world feed, but I did spot this as Perez was getting called to the weighbridge. As Hamilton comes past, the hand goes up in disgust. Now, yeah, we see this moment on the side-by-side of Lewis. Basically, what I see here, he's on the outside of the corner. He knows that Perez is coming up. You can see there on the left-hand side. He knows Perez is coming up, but where do you go? You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you go to the inside, you're on the racing line. On the inside, you can't stop the car on the track. So I feel like Lewis was just in that predicament where he's completely in the way. He was in the way and tried his best to get out of the way, but unfortunately you end up on the racing line on the exit of the corner. So it'll be interesting to see how the stewards read that one. From my experience, I wouldn't have known where to put my car there in that situation. I really do think it's bad luck for Checo that he found himself in that situation. And for Lewis, apart from throwing the car off the track and driving through the gravel or just physically stopping, I really don't know where else he could have gone in that moment. It's a strange corner, that one, down in turn 9. We also saw George Russell really struggling with the balance of his car before he put the new set of tyres on. This was to turn 8 and then into turn 9. Of course, we just looked at really fighting the car there. So that set of new tyres helped him as well, but many drivers complaining about the balance of their car. Back to you, Crofty.
I'll get your thoughts on the Hamilton incident, Martin, in a moment, but to Williams first. The team boss is James Vowles. He's with us this weekend. James, you tried your hardest, but you couldn't get Logan Sargent out in the end.
No, the damage is extensive. The chassis is in a good enough state, but gearbox destroyed, engine has severe damage. So when it's that sort of crash that you saw and then caught fire, it's a lot of work to get it back out. Absolutely had the guys working flat out on it, guys and girls, but without, unfortunately, success.
I'd have lost money on that bet, James, that the chassis would be salvageable without going back to the factory.
Yeah, it looked pretty big to me as well, but no, there's a mirror stay broken, so if that helps your bet at all, I'm not sure. But
no, he's lost, and that's a big dinner he owes me now. James, Alex Albon seemed like he had enough pace there to get you thinking about Q3, is that right?
Yeah, that was sort of the intention with this update coming into the weekend here. It's a very close midfield, and what we bolted on, just doing some rough maths, should have put us in that region. Now, really, we were about 10th because Piastri didn't ride his new tyres and would have been ahead of us. But, you know, we're there or thereabouts. But what you can see is just a few milliseconds is the difference between in or out. So let's see what happens this session.
Yeah, so Alex's time was very good, wasn't it? Both his runs were solid out there, so you must be pretty satisfied with that.
Yeah, very satisfied. The other one is you were talking about it just as you joined me, but the wind through 9-10 is really tricky for the drivers. It's very blustery, but it's a sign of a good car and a good package where you're strong in those conditions. So I'm fairly happy that we're performing well.
Glad to hear it. Thanks, James. Speak to you after Q2. Martin, before we focus too much on what's happening on the track, with Sainz going for his lap and Leclerc out there as well. Lewis Hamilton, Anthony's just analysed that on the sky pad. Is bad luck a defence when you go to see the stewards when you're accused of impeding a driver?
Impeding's impeding. I think he can demonstrate he did his best to get out of the way. Should he have stopped? Did Perez need to lift off? Will be another argument Mercedes will be making. Of course, Red Bull will just be making the argument. 100% that he was impeded, and that, of course, will be a 3-place grid drop for Lewis Hamilton. If the stewards agree with that, you need to see a few more angles, and you need to see the data, which is exactly what they'll look at. But, you know, Perez through fastest, but his point is he's only got one new set of tyres now for the end, for the Q3, assuming he gets through there, and his main rivals will have 2 sets.
Those looking handy so far, Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, who all used just 1 set of the new soft tyres during the course of Q1. Carlos Sainz still sliding around and giving it some drift on this lap. His teammate Charles Leclerc was 4/10 faster through the middle sector alone. Sainz crosses the line, well, 1:11.8 and half a second down on his best time from Q1. Leclerc crosses the line, goes fastest by a couple of tenths of a second. It is worth stressing here, the Ferraris are not looking like they're sharp enough and fast enough here, even on new tyres, these are used, to be troubling pole, maybe the second row today. Yeah,
Car looks a handful, and Carlos looks a bit frustrated. I think I've said a time before this, yeah, he looks like he's overdriving sometimes, sort of, the grip isn't there, so he's just going to have to be a little bit more patient with it, but as you pointed out, it's a used set of tyres that were new 10 minutes ago, and just a ticket.
All over the place.
Carlos Sainz's future secured beyond Ferrari during the summer break, announced as a Williams driver for 2 and potentially 3 years, starting from 2025 as he leaves Ferrari, and Lewis Hamilton goes the other way, ending his association with Mercedes. Lewis winning in Spa in 2013 on the anniversary, I think it was, of his, so in Spa last time out, on the anniversary of his first win for Mercedes.
Still rain in the air?
That's correct.
Ooh, yeah, we are by the sea.
Throw a double 6, wouldn't it?
Well, it's gloomy, and the wind will carry whatever rain is coming to the track quite quickly here, Martin, because it is a very stiff breeze, and it's all coming from the North Sea.
Yeah, which is literally just over the back of the grandstand on the pit straight. So the drivers are really good. They're going to have to push, but as I said earlier on, their focus will move back towards the car itself and the meters they're actually driving. They're really going to have to jockey these cars around, and they will not just be able to trust and just rely on the downforce squashing the car and squashing out the problems.
Oscar Piastri sets off for his first flying lap, and for he and Lando Norris, the mission is clear: get both cars into Q3, which McLaren have done, and the only team to do at every race so far this season.
Oscar takes a tighter line through 2, and then a slightly lower line in 3, actually. Quite interesting, and certainly different to some drivers there. And again, from this angle, it looks like the cars are behaving beautifully, doesn't it? And as soon as you go on board, they're all over the place.
Yeah, quite. It's a very different perspective we get. Sat watching the same pictures as yourself. Verstappen starts his latest lap. Difference between used and new tyres being shown up here. Piastri already a second faster than Charles Leclerc, who has headed back to change his tyres along with Carlos Sainz after their first lap.
Yeah, we should be into the 10s now, shouldn't we, finally? 1 minute 10s, and we'll see how far he can get in there. A 10.5. That's a handy lap. That's a very handy lap time from Oscar Piastri.
And his teammate Lando Norris going faster even through the first sector, and pretty much being matched by Max Verstappen, just a few hundredths difference.
Horrible understeer. Horror. He had to wait so long to get on the power there, did Max. Let's see what it does through this little piff-paff chicane. Getting around a little wide on the way in, but it's a 25.1. He's lost a 10th in the middle sector. His first sector was good, but it's not where he needs to be at the moment. It'll put him up front, but there's so much more time to come.
Yeah, lost a couple of tenths after completing the second sector. 3 tenths down overall behind Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris now goes quicker by 9/1000th of a second. So tight between the two McLaren drivers, and Piastri gets out of Norris, I should say, gets out of the way sharpish so that Carlos Sainz can dive through on his flying lap.
He gave Sainz a nice slipstream down the pit straight, though, as long as it didn't distract him on the way into turn 1.
Carlos might be quite grateful for that from his former team, to be honest, as Sergio Perez will be next to cross the line, charging down the straight, and he finishes 0.6 of a second down on Lando Norris, 0.3 down on his teammate Max Verstappen. Fernando Alonso, who celebrated his 43rd birthday just after Spa, crosses the line 6th fastest. Alonso, the second driver to race beyond their 43rd birthday in F1 since Graham Hill back in Brazil in 1975. Happy birthday to him.
Yeah, so the Aston Martin looks half tidy around here, not too shabby, which I'm saying is a compliment. It is. It looks like they've got a bit of speed this weekend.
Looks like George Russell's found a bit of grip as well on a new set of tyres, Martin. Half a tenth down on Lando Norris, and Lewis Hamilton into the 110s, but half a second down on Lando Norris. And Carlos Sainz, with the aid of a bit of a slipstream, does get into the top 9. His teammate Charles Leclerc is still out on the track, and through the final banking we go with Charles Leclerc around about 125 miles an hour as he heads off that banking, 6th fastest for him.
Yeah, Sainz on new tyres, that's not fast enough in 11.2. If he wants to be in Q3, he'll need to find some pace.
Right, watching the track, watching the timings, watching the tyres and the weather radar, the multitasking Bernie Collins.
Trying to keep an eye on everything for you, Crofty. The first thing to say on the weather radar is here, because of the location so close to the sea as we've discussed, very hard to get anything on the radar. Very hard to see any front coming. And the front that we're watching is the front that has been affecting the UK all day. But we think it's not going to arrive soon after qualifying. Quick update on Ferrari. We've seen them do the first run on used tyres. Then they actually did a pit stop for new tyres. And that, I think, allows them enough time in this session to get 3 runs in. 2 on new sets of tyres at the end of the session and 1 on used. And the very final bit of info, Crofty, is we've seen McLaren, they've done their first run in this session. Both McLarens and many, many others, between their first run in Q1 a little over 20 minutes ago to their first run now, have gained a second of lap time. So that's how big the track improvement is.
And that is all track improvement, that lap time.
That's new tyre to new tyre, so that's all track. They should be running the same fuel across both. They're obliged to run the same engine modes. So that is track improvement. And that is from their first run in Q1 to their first run now. We'll see that track improvement will reduce as we go through the sessions, as long as the weather plays ball, just looking at those clouds.
And you can feel that behind the wheel because you're so much a part of the car. You instantly feel a little bit more load in the steering wheel, and you can get on the, you instinctively pick up the throttle earlier, carry a little bit more speed, brake a meter or 2 later. I don't know how you know that, but you do.
Yeah.
You just that grip just comes through you, especially through your hips, for example, in the seat of the car, and all of the feedback you get is, hang on, this is better. And you see that in extreme circumstances when it's going, say, from wet to dry, where every lap can be 3 seconds quicker than the lap before.
Wowzers. 4.5 minutes to go. Incredible. 21 years ago, he won his first Grand Prix, and still competing at the highest level, Fernando Alonso for Aston Martin, who last year here managed to finish second in the race. Chaotic race that it was too, with we get 112 overtakes after lap 1.
Yeah, I love the fact that we've got youngsters coming in like Doohan and Beerman, probably almost certainly Antonelli. But you do need a couple of reference points as well, and we've got 2 great champions in Hamilton and Alonso. I don't think they're seat blocking. I really don't. Of course, Hamilton's not, especially, but you know, Fernando is very much pulling his weight and getting the job done, and it's not been anything like as good a season as last year, but you need those reference points. I think they're so important, but you need the fresh blood as well.
Fernando Alonso racing alongside Lance Stroll, who celebrates a 158th start in Formula 1 this weekend, which we know is a magic number because it makes you one of the more experienced drivers in Formula 1, because it's how many starts you had in your career.
Yeah, I can barely remember one of them, and it seems like somebody else's life, to be honest. When I wander up and down the grid, getting in everybody's way, never imagined that I used to be on that grid. It's funny,
Really?
it's like a different life, yeah. And I've talked to other drivers about that, and they're exactly the same way.
Seriously?
Yeah.
158 starts, 10 podiums. I'll give you that one that they took away. It's like
Yeah.
George Russell wants the win to remember still from Spa. We'll give you that podium.
I've got
they took
10
away.
trophies and a broken ankle to confirm I was definitely there in 1984.
Right, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris still in the garage, and I think they can stay there. The cut-off shouldn't be affecting them too much with 110.4, 110.5 for Norris and Piastri. But Lewis Hamilton is coming out once again. I dare say Charles Leclerc will be out of the track. He is. He's just appeared at the end of the pit lane right now. And everyone from Hamilton down is on the track. And some of them need to improve more than others, including this man, Pierre Gasly. And there's the gap to Carlos Sainz, just under 0.3 of a second, with Gasly in that bottom five, along with Magnussen, Tsunoda, Hülkenberg, and Albon. Here he goes then for this final flying lap for him in Q2.
Heavy tailwind, but we haven't seen a lot of lockups into the first corner. They're running a little bit wide on the way in, but this is the part that comes at you very fast indeed. And that's brilliant, isn't it? When you just throw the nose into the banking. Banking will always help you carry a lot more speed. And you can hear the car hitting the ground, which you just ignore from the wheel, and carry all the speed. You can see the cranes there because there's no service roads. So anybody crashes out there, you have to crane them out of the way. You're not going to tow them into a service access. And yeah, a little bit ponderous, isn't it? On the apex, there is the Alpine, but it's a personal best first sector, a personal best middle sector. Can Gasly get himself into the top 10 shootout?
Well, Hülkenberg's crossed the line with a 1:11.12, and he's just missed out on the top 10. But Gasly is going faster by about 0.4 of a second to Hülkenberg through the first couple of sectors on this lap. Crosses the line now, goes fifth fastest. Now that's a competitive lap time there of a 1:10.8. That might be good enough for Q3. But this track is ramping up and improving behind him. Tsunoda and Albon, Sainz and Alonso, and this man, Sergio Perez, who left it until his last lap in Q1 to go fastest overall. And this is going to put him right up there at the top as well. On to fourth place for Sergio Perez. Lance Stroll has just put a 23.9 in for the first sector. And that's the fastest we've seen so far. His teammate, Fernando Alonso, is improving and is coming to the final corner now, but not improving by as much. Albon goes fifth fastest, ahead of Max Verstappen.
Once again then, Sainz is driving for his life to get a time in to get him through to the next stage.
And the one who missed out the first sector was Lewis Hamilton, as Alonso goes only 8th fastest. Hamilton down in 10th place, needs to pick up the pace a little bit on this lap. He's now in the bottom 5 as Sainz goes 9th fastest overall. Stroller said ace the first sector. Here he is round the final turn. He's currently 13th. This is going to take him higher. Goes 4th fastest, pushes Sainz now down into 10th, and Hamilton is going to need all the pace out of that Mercedes, and he hasn't got it. And I said the first sector wasn't great, and the rest of the lap panned out in not the way Lewis Hamilton or his boss Toto Wolff were expecting. Charles Leclerc goes 6th fastest, pushes his teammate Carlos Sainz out of qualifying, and that is quite the dramatic end here with Lewis Hamilton, who has qualified 13th last year, now going 12th fastest this year.
Won 2 of the last 3 races, but that's a difficult grid slot for Lewis Hamilton. I think we saw the Carlos Sainz thing coming, didn't we? Of not making it through, but I did not anticipate Lewis Hamilton struggling for raw pace. He lost 0.3 in that first sector you referred to, and it's a too short a lap to make that up.
Only 2.5 miles long, and whilst Carlos Sainz was struggling throughout, Hamilton, to the surprise, I think, of him, his boss, and those that were expecting more, the Mercedes fans, finds himself out.
Stayed in front for the all high-speed corners.
So what's caught out the likes of Sainz and Hamilton are, to an extent, outperformances by the likes of Alex Albon in the Williams. both Aston Martins going a little bit better as well, particularly Stroll. Stroll's looked quick right from the get-go, and that's what's caught them out. And Gasly too. Gasly up there in 9th, so they're not necessarily cars you would have expected to be in front of a works Ferrari and a works Mercedes, but on this day in history, they are.
Yeah, equal top point scorer in the last 4 races, but he's out in Q2 for the 2nd year running here in Zandvoort. P12 for Lewis Hamilton. He joins Magnussen and Hülkenberg and Tsunoda and Sainz in making their way out. That is Sainz failing to reach Q3 for the 2nd time this year.
The kind of characteristics from the car there. Back to you.
He was a 1/10 of a second slower than Max Verstappen, who didn't come out for a second run. Brave call, because Verstappen could easily have been knocked out himself if Hamilton and Sainz and Tsunoda were only a 10th behind him and had got their laps together. Alex Albon is in Q3. His boss James Vowles is with us on that Williams pit wall. Another fine lap from a man who produces them from time to time, James.
Yeah, really strong lap from him. Really strong effort.
A strong effort from Alex Albon. He was 4th on the grid last year. He likes it here, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think there's elements of this track that suit the car. Obviously, we've added upgrades here again this weekend that look to be working quite well, and that's moved us back forward. And then there's an element of wind there as well. The wind sort of is gusting, which means if you get it at a bad moment, and I think Lewis did, I sort of overheard and talking about it there, it'll make it a very difficult corner for balance. I think Alex had just a little bit of a drop in wind when we look at the sensors, which may have helped too.
So the track temperature's dropping a little bit more, James. Is that affecting warm-up at all? Tyre warm-up?
It is. I mean, I don't know if you saw from the TV shots a second ago, but it looks like there's sort of rain. It's not on the radar, but it looks around sort of 10 kilometers away visually on TV. And that's also bringing a track temperature drop, and the front axle is really where there's a problem here. So we're generally low on temps, and it's the front that's struggling to come up.
James, thanks ever so much indeed. Good luck for the final part of qualifying. Lewis Hamilton, if you haven't been with us throughout this qualifying session as well, is also going to have to go to the stewards and defend a potential impeding against Sergio Perez, which, if he's found guilty of, could see him lining up 15th on the grid.
Yeah, it's not out of the question. It depends how that inquiry goes with the stewards, with the incident and Sergio Perez, and McLaren then wanting to get out early.
Well, they've got a luxury here, the two McLarens, as has the Red Bull that's come out to the pit lane behind them, of running new sets of soft compound tyres for this session. They're the only 3 cars that have 2 sets.
Yeah, and you can see they're used on the Ferrari. They want to get a run in with the sole remaining Ferrari now, Charles Leclerc. But just under 11.5 minutes to go. And you can see how breezy it is out there. The wind speed's only showing 3 meters per second. Yesterday it was 7 or 8, so but I think it is gusting. But as I found out yesterday out on track, so much of the track is sort of down low. You feel like you're sheltered from that, so you'll pop up into the wind, and particularly a crosswind. The cars are long. That great big engine cover you can see there behind the driver acts like a sail in a crosswind. And of course you're using the air to push the car into the ground anyway, and if that air is disturbed, a little bit like when you're in an airplane, you start bumping around a bit when you go into disturbed air.
So the first 7 races this season saw Max Verstappen start on pole at each and every one of them, but he's only started from pole once in the last 7 races, and he took pole here by 38 thousandths of a second in 2021. Closest margin of the year, by 21 thousandths of a second in 2022, and by half a second last year. He's going to get pole today. I dare say it might be another close one rather than that half a second, but let's see what else happens. And the first flying lap on the new set of soft compound tyres is Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, the car looks nicely balanced. It really does. And again, that tight line through 2, not as high through 3 for Piastri. It's clearly what he prefers because he's placing the car very consistently there in that sector, over the blind crest, and then just pour it into turn 7. And the car, look at that, so much downforce, just rubbing along the ground, sealing the side of the floor to give the extra downforce, and hits the throttle hard, back end, wags the tail, and Piastri looks confident in that car, really confident. Chucking it around, getting on the power. The front axle, the front tyres look like they're pretty good. Let's see how it turns in there. That was fine. Listen to the throttle, squeeze the throttle on through the exit. There's so much power on that particular area. And again, then Piastri fast through the middle sector, but Norris even faster through the first sector.
Yeah, Norris had a couple of tenths in that first sector on his teammate. Piastri crosses the line, 1:10.1. That is the benchmark they all have to attack, and it's 4 tenths faster than last year's pole position, which belonged to this man, Max Verstappen, who can't beat Oscar Piastri and slots in a few thousandths of a second behind the young Australian. Lando Norris crosses the line, and Norris goes fastest. It's a 1:10.0 for Lando Norris, who has been on pole for 3 previous occasions in a Grand Prix, and now provisionally has a 4th to contend with. He's got 1 better than he did last year as well, and that's exactly what he was looking for from those first runs on the new tyres. And we concentrate on those 3, because if you look at Charles Leclerc on the used soft tyres, there's such a big margin between new and used here.
Yeah, but 2/10 is a lot between Norris and Verstappen, for example. It's a lot around this short track. Let's see what George Russell can do. Personal best, but of course it's his first. That was wide, wasn't it? And it just kept the throttle pinned to the firewall. And down the straight he goes. Russell goes over the line and up into 4th place.
Yeah, ahead of Charles Leclerc. Pierre Gasly is the only other to get a lap time on the board. And they're the 6 cars that are out on the track. So Norris with a 1:10.0, 10th up on Oscar Piastri. And McLaren, of course, who had that front row lockout in Hungary a couple of races ago. That's first front row lockout for the team since Lewis Hamilton's final start for them in Brazil in 2012. Might make it 2 front row lockouts in 3 races.
So the McLaren looks better balanced. Verstappen is just making the best of a bad job, I think. I think Mercedes are struggling to warm up their front tyres. We haven't seen Leclerc yet on new tyres, as you pointed out. He turns in so hard there. Oh.
Double check the floor when I come in. Last like 13, I went a little bit wide.
Yeah.
Okay, understood, Max.
It carried so much speed in there, and it just walked him wide and onto the sort of old school curves, very serrated.
It's a cracking track. It really is. Lando Norris saying yesterday, maybe not the track that we really want to return from a summer break at, purely and simply because it is such a relentless, hard ride for the drivers. And look, there's the track dominance. Orange is a predominantly decent colour around here, but it's the papaya of Lando Norris that shows the major track dominance between himself and Max Verstappen. Bernie Collins, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so just a quick update on run plans that teams are running at this stage, Crofty. So the 2 Aston Martins, Perez and Albon, not set a lap yet. That's because they only have 1 new set of softs. You see actually Lance Stroll out there now. He's going to do his single and only shot at Q3 in the middle of the session. The others not wanting to do a run on used tyres, because we see from Gasly's lap time, those used tyres were 5/10 slower than the lap he'd previously done on new. And a bit like Martin described, that reset in grip isn't often what drivers want at this important stage of the qualifying session.
Lance Stroll's out-qualified his teammate Fernando Alonso 5 times this season prior to today. His last lap in Q2 would have raised a lot of eyebrows in a positive direction his way. He looks supremely quick.
Absolutely. So both Aston Martins out on the track then, looking for freedom, looking for clear space and the counter strategy.
And here goes Lance Stroll then. His previous visits here to Zandvoort has only started in the top 10 once. 2022, the only year he scored points here as well.
Yeah, he had a big correction to make in the first corner. He runs up to the white line and again had to correct the car in the heart of turn 3.
Not the smoothest first couple of corners for Lance Stroll. His teammate Fernando Alonso also out on the track. Aston Martin at the racetrack where they made their Formula 1 debut in 1959. It was a very different outfit back in the day of Roy Salvadori and Carroll Shelby. Have the track all to themselves currently. And here's Lance Stroll finding that smoother rhythm as he makes his way around turn 10 and into the second DRS zone.
Another car then that's not got an obedient front end on it at this stage. 25-1 middle sector for Stroll is okay.
But it's not going to trouble Norris, Piastri or Verstappen. The top 3. There's just the final banking to go now for Lance Stroll. Will want to be ahead of George Russell, currently in 4th place, with Russell's run on new tyres to come, but only 6th fastest, and that might have been a missed opportunity there for Lance Stroll.
Yeah, I think that was probably the least impressive lap we've seen from him, actually, but the car did not look ready to go on that lap.
His teammate Fernando Alonso there, Martin, 1/10 of a second down through that first sector. So are these track temperature changes not helping Aston Martin as the wind picks up just that little bit more as well. Alonso matches Stroll through the middle sector.
Yeah, I think they've just reached the limit of how fast they can go, to be honest. They got there nice and early, and that's put them both in Q3, which is important here. But Alonso drives for the line, and it's the second half of the top 10 where they're aiming at, and at the moment he's right there.
He goes 2/10 faster than he managed in Q2. By comparison, Stroll was 2/10 slower than he managed in Q2, and that's what put Alonso into the top 5 as the rest now all file their way out. And we will get the remainder of the 8 flying laps to decide pole position here. Prost, Piquet, and then 3 Verstappens. The last 5 previous poles here at the Dutch Grand Prix, which has been 1 from pole the last 6 times on 4 occasions, and 1 from 10th on the other 2 occasions. Strange anomaly, that one.
I was in that race in 1985. It's a fearsome racetrack. It was back then, mildly terrifying actually, but always, especially with the banking, always lively.
Oh, I cannot do more than this.
He sounds like he gave it maximum effort as well.
Yeah, he's done 11.5, 10.8, 1 minute 10.6. That's a decent progression. And he was, as you said, he was struggling a little bit in the first sector, but it was at best he could do, as he says, and he knows.
Well, this man has won 16 Grand Prix when he hasn't started on the front row, and that's where he finds himself at the moment, down in 3rd fastest. The last time he won from 3rd, Mexico 2023. And talking to team members at Red Bull before this session, the message was, we are not confident that we're going to take pole, but Max can produce some stellar laps when called upon, and what better place to try and produce a stellar lap than here in front of his home fans. And it's a better first sector, but it's not good enough to be the best first sector.
It's not, it's a 10th shy, but let's see what he can do through the rest of the lap. 23.8 first sector for Norris. That's an astonishing time. Norris then on another great lap at the moment.
And Sergio Perez down as well through that first sector on his run, and his only run in Q3 on a new set of soft compound tyres. Verstappen has hooked up the middle sector rather nicely.
We had to hoover up a big slide there with some opposite lock.
And he was 2/10 down to Norris through the first sector, 1/10 up on Norris through the middle part of the lap. So it's all going to come down to the final few corners here. Max Verstappen charging for a 4th consecutive pole, and he does put his Red Bull on provisional pole. For the time being, the fans at Zandvoort are very happy, but that time is short-lived as Lando Norris absolutely demolishes that Red Bull advantage by nearly 4/10 of a second. He puts his McLaren on pole. Sergio Perez goes into the 2nd row. Much improved qualifying from him. That's where Red Bull wants him, but how long will he stay there? Oscar Piastri on the track at the moment seems to be struggling a little bit in comparison to his teammate as Alex Albon goes 7th fastest for Williams. George Russell picking up the pace too for Mercedes.
Yeah, Piastri's had a so-so middle sector, not even a personal best. A lot of work to do in the final few corners if he wants to be on the front row in this McLaren.
It is top 6 for Charles Leclerc as he completes his lap in the Ferrari. And here comes Oscar Piastri then to finish his lap, and he stays 3rd fastest. It's Norris and Verstappen, the 2 leading contenders in the Drivers' Championship that are 1st and 2nd as it stands. George Russell desperate for a good weekend here to make up for that disqualification in Belgium last time out. Crosses the line, goes on to the 2nd row. Decent lap from George Russell.
Yeah, very good effort there, because that car has not really looked ready, has it, with the front tyre temperatures, but he's done an 11.0, a 10.5, and now a 10.2 in Q3. Good progression, shows commitment, and Zach Brown there extremely happy with pole position. And what a pole position for Lando Norris, a 3rd.
Lovely work. Well done, nice job.
And confirm that it's pole. Well done.
Wow, Lando Norris puts himself on pole then for the 4th time in a Grand Prix. He started P1 in a couple of sprint races as well. In the past, he hasn't led beyond the end of the first lap when he started on pole, but as the song says, if you get it wrong, you'll get it right next time, and maybe this is the weekend that he will get it right, and so far, so good for Lando Norris.
I mean, he smashed that, hasn't he? I mean, look at that, 1/3 of a second around this track against Verstappen and 4/10 up on Piastri. That's an astonishing lap. That's the sort of thing we've seen from Senna in the past, and Hamilton and Verstappen. That was a sensational lap from Lando Norris.
No doubting he is capable of some stunning one-lap performances, Lando Norris. But he's up against Max Verstappen on the front row tomorrow. The fist bumps and the hand slapping can start in that McLaren garage as they celebrate the 350th front row start in Formula One and their first pole here since Alain Prost back in 1984. And underneath that crash helmet, I'm sure there's a very calm but very wide smile on the face of Lando Norris. The colour here is orange, but the colour on this Saturday afternoon is very much papaya. And Verstappen playing second fiddle, but from the race strategies yesterday, was about 1/10 of a second advantage over McLaren in that dry running.
Yeah, I mean, Verstappen found 8/10 in Q3. There's another great performance. Yeah. He has... he was how much? He was 4/10 quicker than Perez in the end, but it was Verstappen, his teammate. So a really good effort from Max, but it was not going to get anywhere near that lap from Lando Norris in a McLaren that looks even better than it has of recent times.
So the big headlines from this qualifying: Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz both out in Q2. Hamilton will go to the stewards. He's been investigated for impeding Sergio Perez. Perez manages to put his Red Bull into the top 5, and it's the second time, only the second time he's been in the top 5 here at Zandvoort in previous years. Charles Leclerc for Ferrari, the lead Ferrari, only 6th on the grid. Alex Albon with another splendid lap from him manages to split the 2 Aston Martins, and it's Lando Norris on pole, Jolyon Palmer with the interviews.
Max Verstappen, it's second place today in Zandvoort, but what a show you put on. There was a huge cheer from the crowd when you provisionally took pole. Just wasn't quite to be today.
Yeah, I think the whole of qualifying, you know, we just lacked a bit of pace. I tried the best I could. I'm still very happy, of course, to be on the front row. It's very tricky out there with the wind. I mean, you know, you have these gusts of wind coming in, so every single lap just feels different. So you can't really go off a reference as well. But yeah, I'm happy with second. I think after yesterday as well, this is a good result.
How tricky was it with the balance? We saw your lap at the end, fighting the car in the chicane, 11 and 12, some understeer, some oversteer. Piecing a lap together just looked very hard.
Yeah, it's how it is at the moment. Not the easiest to drive, but the rest of the lap was quite solid. I think, yeah, only 11, 12 was a bit difficult. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully the car is okay tomorrow in the race.
Well, no one's ever beaten you at this circuit. 3 wins on the bounce here. You at least start from the front row. Can you win?
We'll give it a good go, but of course, when you are more than 3/10 behind in qualifying, I think we have to be realistic. You know, I just try to have a good race tomorrow.
All right, well, you're on the front row at least. Well done, Max. Good luck. Oscar, not quite the front row in the end. You were so close all the way through qualifying, just slipped back to 3rd. What went wrong on the final lap?
Yeah, just didn't do a good enough job, really. I think the first half lap was pretty solid, and then the second half just wasn't quite what I needed. So, yeah, clearly the car's been very quick this weekend, and yeah, a little bit disappointing to not be a bit higher up, but we've still got a good race car underneath us, and we can get some really good points and hopefully some trophies tomorrow. So, yeah, we'll give it a crack.
You got upgrades on the car. Obviously, with the weather that we've had this weekend, it's been very difficult to get too many great reads, I imagine, from it, but they seem to be working well.
Yeah, I think they're all doing what they expect, what we expect them to do, and yeah, anything you can put on the car, especially when it's as tight as it is, always a good thing. So yeah, not the easiest conditions to see what it's like, but as long as it makes the car quicker, then I'm happy.
And the car looked good on the long run as well. You thinking that should give you a chance to bring you into play for a victory tomorrow, perhaps?
Yeah, I think it's definitely not out of the question. Yeah, the pace did look good in the long run, and yeah, we've been pretty quick the last few weekends. So hopefully we can have a good day tomorrow, get a good start, and try and make up a couple of spots if I can. But yeah, some good things on offer tomorrow.
All right, Oscar, well done. Hope you can get in the fight.
Cheers.
Lando, what a performance that was. We're back from the summer break, and you're back with a bang. Pole by 3.5 tenths today. Incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, an amazing day. Nice to be back and start with a pole. It was a nice lap. Honestly, the qualifying was always pretty smooth, and put in some good laps, especially the one at the end, which is always the most important. So great job by the team, and happy with today.
And everyone's talking about these weather conditions, the wind, the rain. You seem to be happy across the board. Every lap that you're doing is right at the front, rain or shine, wind or no wind.
It's harder than it looks, I think. I mean, everyone's complaining of it because it is tricky. It's not easy out there, and every lap you have to kind of know what to expect and know how much more you can push, where the limits are. But that's our job in the end of the day. So it's not easy, but I felt comfortable out there. The car was feeling amazing. We've got some upgrades on the car for first time in a while, and everything's working very well. So a big thanks to the team too.
And looking forward to tomorrow. It's a shorter run to the first corner than Barcelona and Budapest. Can you hang on to it?
I don't know why you're saying that, but no, I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm sure it's going to be tough. Max has been quick all weekend. I know we got him today, but he's still second, and he's going to be putting up a good fight, especially at his home race. So looking forward to it.
We're looking forward to it too. Well done, Lando.
Thank you.